Welcome to the following of the Django tutorials on creating charts. So here, if you can remember, we imported the library for chart.js in the previous tutorial, and we also wrote the Ajax code for getting the data from our REST framework, and also we called the function line chart and added the data and also the ID of the canvas. So now here we're going to write the function related to drawing the line chart. So here I can write function and then line chart. Then the next thing we need to enter inside of this is data and ID. And so let's open the block. So we can define the labels. First of all we need to do is to define the labels of our chart. So we can use the attribute data. So if you look at the dictionary that we had for the data, or in JavaScript we call this object. So the object or the dictionary that we created in Python, it was right over here inside of our views.py. It had the labels, the chart label, and the chart data. So now inside of the chart.html, inside of our JavaScript code for calling our data labels, so we can write data.labels. And now the next thing we need to do is to define another variable chart label, which should be equal to data.chartLabel. And the next variable that we will need to add is chart data, which again equals to data.chartData. Don't forget the semicolons at the end. And so now we need to use one of our DOMs here. So we use var ctx equals to. So here we use document dot get elements by ID. So we'll get the canvas elements by ID, and so this one is related to the ID that we get. So, but it'll use the get context, and the context will be 2D. So this is related to chart.js, and now it's the end of the line. So in the next line, what we're going to do is to define the chart variable for using the chart.js, and here I define chart equals to new chart, and here I use the context ctx, and so ctx is the element that we've got from our HTML. And now what the data that we will enter inside of this, first of all we need to define the type of the graph that we're going to draw, and this is a line graph. The other attribute that we need is the data. So the data that we need here is, so let me enter it over here. First of all, we have the labels, which is equal to labels. The other one is the background color, which should be we should use so we need to add the RGB code of our color. So I can add the this code for my chart, and the next thing we need to do is to add the color of the border. You can have either no color for the border or write it over here, doesn't really matter. But here I choose to add a color for the border color, and here I consider, oh, I don't need parentheses, so first of all we need to add RGB, and then I can add somewhere like 50, 100, and 150. So that's good. Let me clean the code. And now the next thing we need to add is the data. So the data is what we defined as the chart data. Chart data, and it is in the format that we have needed, right? It has the data related to the blood pressure, which we got from our dictionary, and so we've got our chart data as well. Now all we need to do is to actually what we need to do here is to add the data sets, right? So this label is actually this is true, but I need to change this to dataset, and also here we have the type for line, we have the data, which this one is true, but there are arrays into arrays, and I mixed it up. Now you need to change something. We have labels, and here we should have dataset. So then you can open up this new dictionary, and or here in JavaScript it is called the object. So we have a dataset after label, and this is datasets. What it is known as datasets. So labels, the datasets. We have a label here, label which is chart label. So there's a difference between this label and this label, and the difference here is that this labels right here is the horizontal axis, and this chart label here is the name of the chart, the label that we put on top of the chart in order to show what data we're representing. So the next thing you need to do is to add the background color, the border color, and the data equals to chart data, which is right over here. And now what we need to do is, so here we need to have a square bracket over this one as well, and also close this. We need a comma afterwards, and then the next thing we need to add here after these two is the options. So it is in the same indentation as data and type, but in JavaScript it doesn't matter what indentation you use, but I want to actually do this because in Python indentation matters, and it helps the code to be much cleaner and understandable by other developers. So we use the options here, and here I add the options, and then I use scales. So scales also matters, and here we can use the scales for our x-axis. So x-axis, and then what we'll have is another square bracket, curly bracket opened up, and then you can write display colon true, which equals true. And here in JavaScript, true is written this way, so be careful about that. This is JavaScript, not Python. And then the next thing is the y-axis, which again we open up square brackets and then curly brackets. So ticks is one of the attributes, and then we will have the attributes begin. So ticks equals to begin at 0, which is equals to true. So it's gonna begin from the 0, even though it would not have any data even near 0, but we'll want that to consider it. So that's it, I suppose. So we've got the y-axis and x-axis, and now it's time to actually put a semicolon after this, and here we go. So we've written our function, and it's time to test our data. So we'll continue with the rest of the project, running the project and testing it, and also adding other features in the next videos. And so that's it for this part of our tutorial.